Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Buhai. First, at this hour, Ukraine closed Novi Yarylovychi checkpoint on border with Belarus. Such a decision had been approved by the Cabinet of Ministers to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Foreigners do not have the right to enter the country. Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs believes that the pilgrims have been tricked into Belarus.
Тисячі осіб з Ізраїлю, з інших країн.
24,000 people from Israel and other countries, members of Hasidic religious communities, are not allowed to enter Ukraine. Certain people had sent invitations to the Hasidim and thus misled them. The pilgrims were brought to Belarus from where they expected to enter Ukraine, as it had been promised by the third party. In fact, these people have framed the citizens of Israel and other countries. The Ukrainian authorities had ruled out to restrict the entry for foreigners into the country, so we will let in only those with a permit.
To stop create additional tension on the Ukrainian border and spread false statements to pilgrims, this is the Ukrainian Presidential Office's demand to the current government of Belarus. The statement said that most Hasidim who are trying to get to Ukraine to celebrate the Jewish New Year believe the rumors that the Ukrainian border with Belarus remains open, but in view of the worsening situation with the spread of COVID-19, Ukraine has to keep its state borders closed to foreigners.
Strict quarantine restrictions also remain in force on the territory of the state, which makes it impossible to hold mass events, in particular of a religious nature. Just as in the spring we had to limit people's participation in the celebration of Easter, we now explain that the mass celebration of Rosh Hashanah with the participation of thousands of pilgrims in the city of Uman, the Cherkasy region of Ukraine, unfortunately is impossible.
Meanwhile, Hasidim continue to arrive at the border between Belarus and Ukraine. According to the Belarusian media, more than 1,000 pilgrims have already prepared the necessary papers to leave the country. They come in small groups, several people per hour, in the neutral zone. Between the checkpoints Novaya Guta and Novi Yarylovychi, representatives of the Red Cross set up tents, brought blankets, water and food for the pilgrims. The Hasidim read psalms, dance, sing and keep trying to get to Ukraine. Another 2,958 new cases of the COVID-19 have been confirmed in Ukraine over the past day. 76 people died. Since the beginning of the pandemic, 162,660 cases have been registered in Ukraine, Kyiv, Ternopil, Kharkiv and Odessa regions, hold the worst record of virus spread.
For us, it is vital to stop the coronavirus spread. We all witnessed what's been happening in Ukraine over the past few months. We've got a constant increase in new COVID-19 cases. As for today, the average daily growth is about 3,000 patients a day.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine asked the Russian side to clarify whether it is interested in holding the next session of the Normandy Four Leaders Summit. Earlier, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister said that there are no grounds for holding a new summit yet. As we reported before, President of Ukraine expressed the expectation that another meeting of the Normandy Four Leaders advisors will be followed by the Summit of Leaders soon.
Ukraine, like other participants in the Normandy format, is interested in seeing that the next Normandy Four Summit confirms the implementation of the Paris Summit agreements and is as productive and possible in terms of achieving future progress in the peaceful settlements of the international armed conflict in Donbass. Inadequately diplomatic and rather emotional comments of the Deputy Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation requires additional clarifications of the position of the Russian side to both numbers of the Normandy format and the international community.
New homes for internally displaced persons. Ukraine has signed a memorandum with the International Organization for Migration. According to this document, hundreds of apartments will be built in Severodonetsk and Kramatorsk for the residents of the temporarily occupied territories of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Details next.
Modern European apartments for residents of temporarily occupied territories of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. The International Organization for Migration, with financial support from the government of Germany, will provide displaced persons as well as other needy residents in Donetsk and Luhansk regions with affordable housing within the next 5 years. The project is achieved at the expense of financial aid in the amount of 52,100,000 euros. Its implementation is scheduled for 2025 and is aimed to provide housing for about 1,500 internally displaced persons. Within the project, it is planned to build, buy and repair more than 500 apartments in Kramatorsk and Severodonetsk. These are the cities where the majority of migrants live. In Kramatorsk there are up to 50,000 and in Severodonetsk 40,000 people. The residential facility that our cities have is outdated and not enough to accommodate everyone who needs housing. Therefore, the military civil administration will make every effort to implement this project, because it is important in the social sense and will solve many everyday problems for our fellow citizens. Both Severodonetsk and Kramatorsk are ready to provide all the necessary technical documentation. They will get every assistance regarding provision of power, infrastructure and so on. We'll give them everything they need. New apartments will be rented out at modest cost. The housing will comply with international standards for energy saving and efficiency.
500 displaced and
A special mechanism will also be developed for those who want to buy these apartments for private ownership. This idea will be based on the communal housing model popular in Western Europe. This will provide people with affordable, sustainable accommodation. The International Organization for Migration will distribute apartments among the families. Reported by Nick Starkov for UATV News.
The Simferopol water reservoir has completely dried up. Local residents publish photos of dehydrated soil in social media. The water storage, previously 30 meters in depth, has turned into a field of weeds. Before the peninsula's annexation by Russian Federation, Ukraine used to cover up to 85% of its needs for fresh water by means of the North Crimean Canal. The Ukrainian authorities are going to restore continuous water supply next to the occupation of the peninsula. Ukraine can enter top 3 most open countries in the world. This was stated by the Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. It is a question of granting access to open data for both Ukrainians and foreign investors. This will result in a drop in paperwork. For a start, they plan to provide internet access to 95% of Ukrainian settlements. According to the minister, people have to see how decisions are made and money is distributed.
The state lives of our incomes and spending, which means it is financed at our expense in order to create certain benefit for us. We must have access to this information. Over the past few years, a lot has been done in the field of open data. At least today, anyone can control the budget and respective processes, monitor the construction sphere, ecology and other sectors.
An audio guide in Ukrainian has been launched at the Vienna Museum of Art History. During an official visit to Austria, the President of Ukraine and the First Lady, Olena Zelenska, took part in the presentation of the audio guide. The virtual tour was voiced by the actors of the Maria Zankovecka National Theatre. The culture project was created as part of Olena Zelenska initiative on popularization of the Ukrainian language throughout iconic cultural and historic places of the world. The Ukrainian language can already be heard in the museums of Azerbaijan, Latvia and Montenegro, and from now in Austria.
I'm very glad that the Ukrainian language will be heard in this museum for the first time. I believe that this will increase the interest of Ukrainians in world art. Despite many Ukrainians speak English and German, nevertheless, it will add to their interest.
Ми працюємо не тільки для
I'd also like to say that we're doing this not only for Ukrainian tourists. We do not forget about those Ukrainians who permanently or temporarily live in other countries. That is why we dream of launching similar audio guides not only in Vienna, but also in Italy, Spain, America, Canada, in any corner of the world where there are Ukrainians who want to discover the world art in their native language. Cultural heritage redefined, and display of sculptures created by means of a scanner, a milling cutter, and 3D printer is being prepared in Odessa. The exhibits are the city's unique architectural objects recreated using modern technologies. The goal of the project is to apply digital tools to restoration of the city's cultural sites that had been damaged by vandals or destroyed by time.
At the workshop, participants for the upcoming exhibitions are in full swing. Here, under the project, very digital residents, they scan, digitize, mold and print the culture heritage of Odessa. Natalia Marinenko took up modeling, which is quite traditional for the ancient architecture of the city. A local homeless man became the model.
It was a great pleasure to take part in the project. I explained to him what our goal was. It is for the project, the weak support the weak. Our shabby and half-destroyed architecture gets supported by people who are out of normal life too.
At the entrance to the workshop, there is a ready-made art object, a 3D copy of an old well. It was deliberately painted with graffiti to remind the visitors what an architectural monument might look like in modern environment.
We create this in the format of reappraisal of what happens to our heritage and our treatment of it. We are going to create 15 individual and 3 group artworks.
The project involves 12 participants, sculptors, architects, and digital technology professionals. The exhibitions of the developed artworks dedicated of the residents will be opened on September 25. By this time, 18 pieces of modern art will be created. Reported by Yamin Khadour, UATV News.
That was our final story this hour. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages.